Welcome back to the Trade Titans Podcast, the show that brings you real stories, proven strategies, and expert insights from top leaders in the trades and service industry. I'm your host, Zach Brown, founder of UpScale Media, where we help trade and service businesses scale predictably in just 12 months without adding more to their plate. Today, I'm excited to have Tim Allen on the show. Tim is the owner of Local Rental Team, a premier property management company, and Kopa Home Services, a full-service home and commercial services company, both based in Flagstaff, Arizona. We're going to dive deep into his journey, the growth of his companies, and the key lessons he's learned along the way. Tim, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
Hey, Zach. Thanks for having me. It's good to see you again.
Same here. Yeah. I'm glad to have you on today. Let's get started with your journey. What inspired you to venture into property management and home services industry?
Yeah, well, like a lot of things, a little bit of luck. Everybody needs a job. So at the time, I was working for a property manager that, most of us that are entrepreneurs, we do it, and then it happens to us many times. But I thought to myself, wow, I think I could do this better. I want to do this better. I didn't enjoy the environment that I was working in. And I started to look for opportunities to venture into the space on my own. An opportunity came up. Like most opportunities, if you look long enough, they start to present themselves. And I was given an opportunity to take over a very small portfolio of furnished rentals, and I jumped at it. From there, I learned quickly that managing residential rental property is mostly maintenance. And being broke, hungry, and wanting to get, to build that business, I started saying things like, I can do that. I can fix that. I don't want to wait for the plumber. I don't want to wait for a handyman that may or may not show up. I don't want to try to find another guy on Craigslist that may or may not show up. So I can figure that out.
Nice. Yeah. I started my home service company very similarly, where I think honestly, I just want to be able to sleep in and work for myself. But yeah, I saw an opportunity and took it and kind of learned along the way. So Tim, managing multiple businesses, I'm sure, can be a big challenge. How do you balance the operations of both Local Rental Team and Kopa Home Services? It sounds like they kind of work hand in hand together.
Balance? Yeah. What's that?
Yeah.
That's the hard part, Zach. When I started it all, it seems so easy when you're on the outside looking in, whether you're a young person, tradesperson, professional entrepreneur that says, oh my gosh, this business is not doing it right. I could do this better. I could do that better. When you're looking at it, it all looks so easy. Gosh, I can manage this property. I can take care of it for an investor or an owner. I can coordinate the maintenance, all of that. And what I quickly found is the balance is really hard. Honestly, I think it's the shotgun approach. I've tried it all. You see an ad, we all get bombarded all day, every day, right? With, are you a small trade company looking to scale? Do you have trouble staying on task? Whatever it might be. And I have tried it all. I've taken productivity courses. I've tried time blocking of like, hey, I'm going to spend 1 hour a day between 9 and 10. I'm going to work on Kopa Home. Between 10 and 11, I'm going to work on, Local Rental Team. Between 11 and 12, I'm going to work on vacation rentals, Then I'm going to take a lunch. That works really well until about 9:01. And then that balance goes out the window. So, balancing it all, now it's been over 7 years. I'm seasoned, discovered what does and doesn't work. And it's honestly a combination of all of it. Some days the time blocking works great. Other days, it doesn't. Some days I feel like I've neglected my job as a leader, as a manager for weeks or months at a time. Like, wow, I didn't realize I wasn't paying attention to this part of the business. So, balance is really tough and it's subjective, and figuring that out is the hard part. And a lot of it is coming to terms with yourself, with your own recognition that it's not balanced.
Right. And if I could kind of jump in and add to that, I mean, time blocking is something that I've had to prioritize for myself. But like you said, 9:01, it kind of all falls apart.
Yeah.
It's tough, and there's so many different principles or strategies to keep that balance, but we're human, something flies by the window or a phone call. I mean, it's so easy to get distracted, and it's so easy for us to get off. Have you found other things similar to time blocking or things that you might mention on this podcast where others might look into it that you have found helpful for, staying on task or making sure that some of those things in the past that have been neglected, that you're kind of staying up on them more?
Yeah, planning. Planning is paramount. Planning is key. It's cliche. I really like the saying, I think they attribute it to Abraham Lincoln when he says, if I had 4 hours to cut down a tree, I'd spend 3 hours sharpening my axe. And even though the best laid plans, at 9:01 kind of go to heck, that doesn't mean that that practice and the exercise of doing that planning was all for naught. It really helps thinking of, where am I going? How am I going to get there? What's the roadmap? These are all things that as an inexperienced and uneducated business person, it took me a while to learn that. I thought that, hey, the best thing I could do is answer the phone. It's a good thing. And work hard and react and always get the job done. And that works really great as a small tradesperson, as a small business person. It works really, really well, just right up until the second it doesn't. And then everything breaks. So learning what that planning is, having a vision and having a goal and doing that exercise, whether it works or not. So every day, looking at that calendar, where am I going to spend my time? What am I going to put my energy into? Even if you have the full knowledge that, man, not once have I ever hit that, have I ever nailed it, 10:01, I'm on to the next task or whatever that is, even if it's never once went the way you wanted it to, doing it, it's the exercise of it that gets into your brain and keeps you focused. It's having that practice of planning of this is what I'm on. Because humans have, as you know, we have such a hard time focusing, whether it's because of the distractions of business or personal life or whatever. Our brains just aren't good at doing lots of things at once. So taking that time to step back, do the planning, write the schedule, it's valuable, even when it doesn't work.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. I think that you hit the nail on the head when you said it's the exercise of doing it. It may not seem like you're getting the results you want from it, but reflection, planning, just the doing of it, the time that you're taking out of your day to at least try to be a little more on top of things and a little more focused, you're never going to look back and be like, oh, I wish I'd never have done that, So 100%, I totally agree with that. And I relate to that a lot, trying to be prepared to plan the best I can. So that's a pretty good segue from, starting off small and working up as you scale your company. When you started out, it's kind of as an amateur property manager, just starting out, what were some of the significant challenges that you faced? And how did you overcome those? And what were maybe kind of the milestones in your mind of your growth?
Yeah, for me, the biggest challenge has always been staffing, help, asking for help, employees. I started on my own. It was just me. And it became clear pretty quickly that I was growing. The first few months, I'm thinking, man, how am I going to even pay the rent? And within a few months, it's more like, man, how am I even going to sleep? And for any young tradesperson, whether you're starting in a trade business or even just a business, an entrepreneur, it's a pretty common story. It's cliche, and it can happen quickly if you're out there doing a great job. If you've got, the intent to do a great job, to provide value to your customers, you're going to grow. It's just going to happen. Finding help, both asking for it and then learning how to delegate, learning how to get that help to work the way it should is the hardest part. It was the hardest part for me. That was the biggest challenge that I've faced, honestly, until recently. It's not something that you can learn in school. You can get a lot of HR experience. You can read a lot of books. I wish I would have done that. Because learning by trial and error is painful both to you and the people that you're trying to help through employment and things like that. but that was, and, throughout my growth as a business, it's always been the hardest part.
Can you share with the audience? I know personally friends and other business owners who have trouble letting go, delegating, no one's going to do the work quite like I do. And they just have that fear. What allowed you to really take that step and let go of the vine and delegate,
Yeah, nothing, practice, time, failure, all of those things made it better. That is the hardest part. It's super cliche. You talk to other guys doing business and having a staff, and so you hear it a lot. I've heard it a lot. I've been, I've worked in coaching programs, and there's a lot that goes into coaching programs to, delegate, delegate, delegate. Don't be the spoke or the hub of the wheel where everything falls apart if the hub goes away. And that's hard when you build something and you've talked to, there was a time I knew every customer, by name. I've still got some customers. The first customer that ever called me, Zach, and said, "Hey, I'm wondering if you can come and replace this sliding door." And I said, "Yeah, we totally do that." I didn't have a clue. I didn't know what was going to happen there. I'm on Google. I'm like, yeah, I'll be there at 4, That customer still calls us to this day. And she sometimes still texts my personal cell phone. And so it's hard when you've done that, you've poured a lot into it. It is hard to think, what's going to happen and how are they going to do it? How can I get someone to put that same effort and that love and that care into the job? And here's the bottom line. You can't, you won't, you just absolutely won't. You might get lucky and have some great employees. You might have some guys or gals that you're like, wow, they love this, but what we're doing every bit as much as I do. But that's probably not going to happen. And having a realistic expectation with your employees of like, hey, this is not theirs. Thinking about what's going to happen 10 years from now, 20 years from now. Are you going to equally split the spoils of all the work that's going into that? With every employee that you've got, you're not. And there's the same amount of hours in the day. So realizing that that's not going to happen to the same level, and then starting to build the processes, the redundancies, the checks, the like, hey, how can I make sure that if there is a mistake, it doesn't affect us? It doesn't come back on us in a way that we don't catch it and make it right. And of course, humans are humans. You're going to go through employees. You're going to have people that are great, and you're going to have people that really, really suck, no matter how good you are at hiring and how slow you go, right? So I think that's the secret. If there's a secret, it's realizing that there's no secret. You're just never going to get it perfect, and having compassion and grace with both yourself and your employees, of knowing that, hey, they have less invested. Well, how can I? Well, there's so much more. There's so much more. How can you get your employees more invested? Another part of the conversation.
Right. No, but you answered my question really well. And I think that to kind of just sum up what you're saying, I think you have to just take that leap of faith and do it. Delegate, find the employee, hire the person, and be okay with the fact that it's not going to go perfect. It's going to be messy. You're going to have to figure it out as you go. But you could start building systems. You could do things to not allow that to happen on the regular, or maybe not happen again. And you just keep taking that step. But I think where people really miss out is when they are afraid to take that step and they do nothing. And then you cap yourself, you keep hitting that ceiling, and the answer's right in front of you. You got to just do it. You got to let go, get that new employee, put that person in the right seat, whatever it takes, and just go along for the ride and do the best you can. Get a coach, get a mentor, get some help, but just do it,
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that's
indeed.
excellent.
And you're going to find those people that surprise you. You are going to find those people that it's like, hey, I care about my job. I care about my employer. I care about my community. And there's a lot of ways to build that culture, to spread that culture, quickly weed out those that don't get it or won't participate. And, there's a lot that goes into that in coaching and business development and things like that. But yeah, I totally agree, Zach. You've got to try. And letting go is the hardest part. The first coach I had, after I kind of realized, wow, this is not going well, there's something has to change here. We had a little bit of money and had all this things of how are we going to spend it? And in the end, I thought I came down to kind of a light bulb of like, I've got to get a coach. I've got to spend this money on getting a coach, and that was one of the biggest difference. So whether it's a mentor, some accountability, another business person, a friend or colleague or competitor, you've got to have that support system if you're ever going to be able to, if you're listening to this and struggling with letting go of like how I need help, but I can't afford it. That's a big one. I can't get another person to do what I'm doing because I'm making $100,000. That's enough for me. I got to pay for my truck. I got to pay the insurance. I can't give somebody else $60,000. How am I going to possibly do that? Feels impossible. But yeah, it's a leap of faith for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And Tim is not the first person on this podcast to say great things about having a mentor or a coach. So you guys definitely consider that. It sounds like a big step for you, big move for you, getting mentor coach. I've had coaches and mentors. They've done the exact same thing for me, pushing me to my next level, helping me get past my limiting beliefs. If you can find a good coach or a mentor, somebody, it doesn't even have to be somebody online that you pay. It can be somebody in your town or someone you really look up to that can actually help you and keep you accountable. Excellent thing to have in your personal life and for your business. So that's great, Tim.
Yeah, definitely necessary in my opinion, every aspect. If you have a professional coach, they have never had one that didn't have a coach of their own. But if you have to, for me, and someone that started small, I've always struggled with the scarcity, mindset, the idea of like, how am I going to pay for it and things like that. I wasn't brought up. I had to do it on my own, and didn't have a lot of any help and things like that. So financially, and so it always creeps in. And if you're having that, like you said, Zach, it can be a neighbor, it can be a friend. It doesn't have to be a professional, but get that mentor. You can even coach them like, hey, this is what I need from you. I need you to check with me every Wednesday morning to make sure my next week's plan is written or whatever that might be. And they'll get the hang of it. It could be a member of your, it could be someone in your church. Someone is out there that's been there, preferably a related business, but it doesn't have to be. Business is business. We all go through the same stuff of employees and taxes and right. Yeah. It's all kind of a lot of the same challenges all day, every day.
Yeah. Something else I've found too is that person that we're discussing could just be somebody who's even a good listener, who has a fresh pair of eyes, who doesn't really know anything about your business or what you do. They're just a good friend. Sometimes just talking to somebody about what's going on because your wife's tired of hearing about it or whatever the case may be really can just talking it out can really help you. And then who knows, like they might just have some common sense, retort to what you're saying. And it just kind of, oh yeah, that's simple, but it makes a lot of sense. You never know. That's great. So I wanted to ask you a little bit about your area of staff is, seems like a unique market with the vacation rentals. It seems like I guess, tell us a little bit about the uniqueness of Flagstaff and how have you tailored your company and services to meet the specific needs of the community?
Yeah, Flagstaff. I can talk about Flagstaff all day long. My nickname is Flagstaff Tim. So I've been here. My parents moved me here. I had no choice. I got here in grade school, and I always swore I'm going to leave this place when I was growing up. Got to get out of here, right? Small town, snow, cold weather. Let's go see the world. And that did not happen. And over time, I love this town. It's a mountain town, a smaller community. We're pretty big now, 60 to 80,000 people. We've got a state university that adds 20,000 or more residents during the academic year. Kids, young adults, of course. And we're a drive-to market to Phoenix, which is a fairly large city. And so you do get in any kind of market like that, a lot of second homeowners, a lot of tourism because we are close to the Grand Canyon. Plus we have the ski area, the Arizona Snow Bowl, and learning how to work with that and where the money comes from has been a big part. As a young person, it was just, hey, get a job, have a job, do what I got to do. And as someone that's always been inclined to try to do their own thing, try to start a business, try to be involved in the community, it did take some time to learn, like, hey, how is this going to work? What service am I going to provide? We had a saying here in town, which I really hate. I don't like it, but I'll share it, that, a lot of people say, hey, this is poverty with a view, because it is hard in a small town to find good jobs. There's no manufacturing jobs here. I guess we do manufacture. There is one place, but, large professional. There's not like accounting firms that employ hundreds of people. We're not making computer chips or, it's difficult. You can go to Phoenix and you can pay less for a house, and the same exact job, you can make 20 to 40% more. Guaranteed, let alone if you specialize in some way. So in a small town like Flagstaff, just kind of really learning and asking, a lot of figuring out what you can do is ask someone, hey, what is it that you're experiencing? Zach, what is it that you would like to see in this town? Are there enough coffee shops? Is there, every time you call a plumber, does it take 6 days? Are you without hot water for 6 days every time you have something break? And that'll give you a really good idea of, what's going on, what people need. And of course, recognizing that second home population, that services that people want to take care of their houses and they have the money to do it, was kind of a turning point for me.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can relate to that as well. My area here in Hamilton, Montana, it's a retirement community. There's some money here, but for the most part, kind of the non-seasonal, the non-tourist people that make up the great, Bitterroot Valley here, there is a great need for handyman services. And so I saw that and I thought, I could learn that. I could do that. And, this podcast focuses on the trades, painters, plumbers, property management, whatever it might be. Really, we won't I'll get too deep on this. We'll make it very simple. If you can find a problem that needs solving, and you can find a group of people who have the money for you to solve that problem for them, there you go. Get some skills, invest in yourself, and fill that gap there. So, I don't preach, but no, this is good, Tim. I like what you're saying. So,
well, preach it, man. I wrote down when we had our first conversation. Here it is. I wrote across. It's just a sticky note, but I've kept it on my desk where I can view it. And I just wrote, "Buy a leaf blower," because you said, "Hey,
yeah."
For anybody looking to, work for themselves, it's hard. Like I don't have an education. I didn't go to college. I couldn't quite focus in the right way to do that. And I've had a variety of careers, and I've always taken education seriously. But that really stuck out when he said, "Hey, if anybody wants to get into trades, buy a leaf blower. You can get a Ryobi. I mean, it might only last you 2 days, so charge enough to buy another one.
Yeah, right.
Save up for a good one.
Yeah,
but do what you got to do, and just make it happen, and then learn from there. Learn what is next from there. One kid with a leaf blower can have a $60 million landscaping company in 15 years. It is possible.
You're not
it's
joking.
been done.
You're not joking either. And I know, because the way I started out, it would have been a joke. You would look back at that, and I look back at it now, and I'm just like, wow, I really thought a lot of myself or something, had no shame. But you're going to go take your leaf blower, blow those leaves, and next thing you know, a person, do you do this also? And you're going to go, sure I do. And you're going to go home and watch YouTube for 4 hours to figure out how to do that. And then same thing, on and on. And that's just how it happens. And, if you're watching this, you're probably cracking up about this, because I'm sure you were there as well. And that's really how it starts. Of course, we're a bit past that, but, opportunity is everywhere, as long as you have eyes to see it. I got a couple more questions for you, Tim, here, but this is great so far. Excellent advice. Excellent. Great to hear your story about where you live and how you're doing things in your business. The second half of this, we'll kind of open it up, just chat about whatever's on your mind currently. But I wanted to ask you, customer service, that is the cornerstone of your business, and it really is for any service business. What strategies have you implemented to ensure like a high level of client satisfaction that keeps reoccurring clients and having a good reputation for your company?
We talk about it a lot. With anything in your business, talk about it. Put it out there, get it out on the table. It is a lot easier to talk about it before you're reacting to a bad circumstance, before you're reacting to a bad review, and writing it down and having that visible as well. So one of our core values is we are not alone. That's it. When we describe it, that is like, hey, we're a member of a community that's important to us. And, having the customer as a partner, and understanding and realizing that and talking about it early, talking about it often with staff in staff meetings is important. So, we've been able to accomplish in our market, there are a lot of handyman services. There's a lot of contractors here for such a small market. And, we've been able to, maybe 10 times the next closest competitor when it comes to Google reviews. I think there's a few. The trades businesses are really opening up. When you start seeing courses on Facebook and social media, then you know that there's some level of saturation and sophistication coming to the industry. And that has happened. You can buy a course, you can buy a book. There is a blueprint for how to do this and how to do it well. So we do have a few more places now that might be up to 15 good Google reviews, and we're above 80. So talking about it, and then not just talking about it with your staff, but talking about it with your customer. Hey, Zach, you've asked us to come over today and replace the screens in your windows. I'm going to send one of my technicians, or I'm going to come myself. We're going to replace the screens in your windows. And when we're all done, I expect you to be super happy with the outcome. And we're going to charge you $300. I'm going to ask you for a great Google review. If there's anything about that isn't working, if you don't think you can leave me a good Google review, if I'm putting those in and you think, wow, these aren't screens, he's putting plywood over my window, I want you to tell me about it right away. Does that sound good? That's easy. From the first phone call, setting that expectation of, this is the service that I want to provide to you. Sometimes that goes haywire. In the service business and the trades, all trades, the general public thinks that we're magic, right? Thinks that, don't you just do something and then it always works this way? Isn't there magic in the walls? And it's like, man, this is plumbing. This stuff breaks. I might put something in there that works fantastic, and 10 minutes later, it might break again. This is the real world. And that's hard, especially when someone comes at you with something less than kindness. But yeah, customer service, it's so important. Talking about it often, setting expectations with your customers, practice on your spouse or partner, practice on your kids, practice on your neighbor. If you're not comfortable going to your customer and saying, hey, Zach, this is what I want to do for you. And when I'm done, I expect, not just I'd be grateful for it, or if you wouldn't mind, I expect a 5-star review on Google because that's where it helps me the most. Can I do that for you? And penetration on reviews is hard. Like, we have more than anyone in our market. And as you know, someone will promise you, they will be at their computer. I'm doing that right now. And then it'll never show up, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yep. Yeah, you must be doing something right to get that. And I saw that early on. My company will be 7 this year, and I think we've got just over 50 5-star reviews, and the next guy down is probably at 15.
Yeah.
It makes a big difference, and don't neglect that, because maybe not everybody, but 80% of the people, when they need something, I go to Google, handyman near me, or, flower shop near me, or whatever it is. And if you're there right in front of them first, you're going to get the first call. You better answer that call or have somebody answer the call, but you want to position yourself well. And I really like that you were saying, Tim, it's I wouldn't say aggressive, but it sounds very confident in setting the stage for the prospect, for the client that you intend to work for, in saying, here's what we're going to do. It's going to be great, and you're going to be happy, and we're going to ask you for a review. And you're really setting them up, and you're getting their mind focused on the results that you're going to bring them. And they may even say, oh, well, yeah, I'll give you a review if you do a great job. It's like, I already know we're going to do a great job. But framing that into their mind, here's what we're going to do, here's how it's going to look. They start to see this. It gets their mind mostly on results instead of maybe pricing, or I don't know if I can trust this guy. You're laying it out. I think that's really good. And that's a great approach to take. Even if some of you watching this, maybe you're saying like, oh, that's kind of aggressive. Like expect a review. Yeah, expect a review. You should be doing a good job so that the person would be absolutely happy to do that review on a more technical.
Yeah, you expect to get paid, right?
Right.
So I treated a lot of, and I've had other people say, oh no, I would never do that. I would never phrase it like that. But would you have that conversation on that first phone call and go, and then we're done. If it's not too much trouble, I wouldn't mind if you wrote me a check.
Right.
It's just, hey, yeah. I'm going to do my job. With only 80, every single customer we've ever worked for had left us a review. Oh, right. And we've got another 50 or 60 or so that aren't on Google because they go through our software. Sure. But if every customer that we've ever worked for had left us a review, I'd have, I don't know, certainly hundreds more.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, it might be aggressive, but again, it's to me, it's no different than you expect to get paid, don't you? You lay that out for the customer. This is what it's going to cost. And when we're all done, go ahead and pay me.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, on a more technical side of things, like, is there something you've done to really try to capture more of those reviews? Do you send them a link? Do you have an automation set up for that? Does your team currently handle that? What's that look like?
Yeah, my team handles it now. I handled it in the beginning from working at another service company, an appliance repair company, before I got into property management. Every single customer, when our tech was done, as quickly as I could, being the office manager and trying to keep up, I would call the customer. Hey, did our tech show up? Did we do a good job? Is your washer working? Yeah. What was the outcome that you would expect if you were the person getting that service? What's the outcome you would expect? Check in with that customer and ask for the review. Over time, that became impossible. I wish I could go back and do this all over again, because if it becomes impossible, then it's time to stop growing. It's time to say, hey, I can't do the job right, so I can't take on one more customer. And we finally started doing that a couple of years ago, and I wish I would have done it years before that, of like, hey, I'm no longer doing the job right. So now, of course, it's mostly on the team. I do have a dispatcher and a front office manager that does that. And it's every single time, no exceptions. It is talking about it in the meetings. It is going over spot checking. And we talked about delegating earlier. And one problem I really struggled with delegating was abdicating. And my first coach pointed that out very quickly. He goes, well, it sounds like you get somebody to do something, you're out. You're like, they'll do it. And I'm like, well, shouldn't that be the way it is? Isn't it their responsibility now? But it's not. Humans, it's why when you're at a construction site, there's 6 guys standing around and 1 guy digging a hole, right? There's something going on that has to be watched.
Yeah, right.
You can't abdicate that responsibility. So whether it's a series of people taking responsibility to each other and accountability and then spot checking, whatever it is, you've got to build those systems to ensure that everybody's getting that ask. Because in the end, we care about the reviews, right? As tradespeople, with your company, with my company, we care about the reviews because we know they work. We know we're going to get a call. Well, I saw you 5-star on Google. Fantastic, that worked. But in all honesty, I don't really like the review culture. It's less the actual review, except for the fact that it works. It's more about, hey, wouldn't you want that? Wouldn't you want to, provide that service? Wouldn't you want to get the good service for what you've just spent your hard-earned money on, and get what you want? So yeah, following up, creating incentive, talking about it often, and just leaving zero room for error. I've certainly had guys that's like, they won't ask for the review. You try everything. You try incentives. I mean, we throw $20 bills around in meetings of like, oh, they said your name, boom, it's cash. So there's lots of ways that, certainly we could talk about, but not accepting, there really has to be a zero tolerance culture of sometimes you have to let people go, because you wouldn't, as a plumber, you wouldn't allow a tech to walk in, replace the P-trap and not hook it up. And if they did that every time and they go, oh, I'm just not good at that part, I do everything else right. It's just part of the job. And guys know that now. Techs know that, and certainly tie it to their compensation in some ways of like, hey, this is rewarded, and it is also expected, of course.
Yeah. No, that's good. Yeah, my train of thought kind of took a leap there, but yeah, and I think we've nailed the Google review thing for sure.
Yeah.
I was gonna say something on that. We'll leave it there because let's man, we're gonna have to cut this one out here. Let me take a sip of this. I want to just talk about the end of, before we kind of open this up a little bit more and just talk about whatever, kind of where you're at now with your companies, and whether, if you're growing, if you're streamlining, maybe talk about like the size of your company, how many people you've got now, and what your goals are coming up, that sort of stuff, if you want to share on that.
I'm just counting really quick.
Sure. Yeah, sometimes as we're speaking, I'm thinking one thought, and I'm like, oh, I got to remember that so I can bring it up, and then we keep talking, and then I'm like, I need to start writing stuff down too.
Yeah, no, it's there's definitely an art and of course a practice. I've seen some shows that have thousands of shows under their belt, and others that are at a few, and we'll get there someday. So
right. Well, I had no intentions of doing this live. I was like, let's have a focus and kind of just go from there. But yeah, this all get cut out and stuff. But no, this is great, man. I love hearing your experience, and thank you for sharing all this. For sure, this is good. Let's continue. You good?
I'm good.
Cool. So, where are your companies currently kind of at, is in terms of like growth, or like I said, streamlining? You had touched on, if you can't do the job right, stop acquiring clients. What does your company kind of look like right now, and what are your goals for your company's future?
Yeah, we are ending a period of what I termed operational excellence. A couple of years ago, maybe 3 at the most, and for a few years before that, we were completely broken. We grew very, very fast. We doubled, we tripled year over year, several years, doubled and tripled. Only tripled once, but doubled for a period of over 5 years straight, always doubling. It was hard. It was hard, and it broke us mentally, emotionally, physically. It was nice having a lot of money and having the money flowing in. It gave us some flexibility, but it was also very difficult because when you're not a well-oiled machine, you're not applying that money correctly. You're not paying attention to a lot of things that matter. And so we did have to take a step back. I changed all of our weekly meetings, put a big banner up, not physically, but on our presentation. Thinking back, I would do it physically. I would have gone and printed out a huge banner that says operational excellence. And that was exactly it. It's like, we are not going to do one more thing until we do everything that we do right. Until I don't have to, make an excuse to a customer again, and a lot of the failure was me taking on too much and me trying to keep everything together. And kind of losing it. Customer service went out the window, just being able to get things done. So growth is hard. And we're in that position where we've come through that successfully. I had heard some podcasts, or I assume they were podcasts, of people talking about, sometimes you have to work on the internal processes for a little while. And I started learning that a little while was years for these real companies with tens of millions, of dollars in revenue. They're like, yeah, we had to focus on this for 3 years. I'm like, what? Here I was thinking maybe if I just spend the morning.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Maybe I'll catch up on my emails.
We'll fix this in one meeting. Yeah.
Yeah. So we stopped projecting. If you're a business person and you're early, I encourage you to stop growing and start from the beginning, and start from the very beginning. I actually had to go back because I didn't know business. I didn't go to school for business. I have had businesses before. None of them failed miserably. I've always done okay, but it's usually like, I just go out, I do the work, and learning that, wow, I don't have a mission statement. I don't have a org chart. I don't have accountability. We don't have weekly meetings. A lot of that stuff that in hindsight, and for anybody listening that has grown a business or has done coaching and read books, it's like, well, yeah, this stuff is obvious. But for a lot of people, it's not. It's not obvious. You just were doing the work and you were doing a good job.
Absolutely.
So stop the growth, go back to the beginning. And that's exactly what I did. I'm not even going to answer my emails until I get that org chart done, until I get those core values done. That's a slight exaggeration. You still got to operate, obviously. And so we stopped growth on a brick wall. We just said no more. And it was about 2 years. And now we've come out of that. We're successfully growing. I don't want to say easy, but it feels good. It feels good to get a new client and to not wonder, how the hell am I going to go and bid this job? How am I going to go do an estimate when I'm 12 hours into this day already? I want the estimate. I want the job. It's thousands of dollars. If you're a contractor, it could be tens of thousands. But if it doesn't feel good, that's a good sign that it's time to stop. Go back. Find out where you missed something. If it doesn't feel good, you missed something in planning and processing your business.
Yeah, that's really good advice. It's easy to get caught up and just throw people at things and take the jobs, and then you eventually find yourself in that position of just stress and overwhelm and 14-hour days, and you're like, what the heck happened? I understand what you're saying, and I'm curious, what were you doing that really led to your growth, and what were some of the things that you saw once you kind of got too far over your skis?
Yeah, I was just answering the phone. Zach, from the beginning, we haven't done marketing. We're not good at marketing now. I just answered the phone. I learned that at an appliance repair company. It was a friend of mine from childhood. He and his dad owned the company. I called him because I know you're a business owner. Maybe you know people that need somebody to work. I needed a job. And they go, well, I guess we could hire you. I go, oh, no, I don't want that job.
Yeah.
So really, to go back to the beginning, when you said, how did you get into trades? That's actually how I got into the trades. I thought maybe they knew a professional job of some kind. My background had been in finance and at title companies. And so I thought, I'm a desk jockey kind of guy. I still was a desk jockey, armchair quarterback at the appliance company, but anyways, I called them. They said, yeah, we could give you a job. I got in there and I realized, wow, they're not answering the phone. Started answering the phone. I'm just like, we got to answer the phone. We got to answer the phone every time. And we grew by 50% that next year and 50% the year after. So we were quickly from a little less than $500,000 to $1 million in 2 years. And so I took that same attitude. I had learned, like, wow, that really works. And I took that attitude into my business from day one. I would not recommend this. So totally another conversation if we want to have that conversation. But I had my cell phone. That was my personal cell phone was my mode of business. If you are starting a business, no matter where you are, if your personal cell phone is your mode of business, stop, go back and do it right. Now, that's for me. I know people went 30, 40 years in business, use their personal cell phone. I do not recommend it. I say, get that away. You've got to have time away. But I answered the phone. I asked for business and I answered the phone, and that worked up until the time that we were so busy that our heads exploded and the stuff that started slipping. Yeah, we'll get that done for you tomorrow. 3 weeks later, shit.
Yeah.
No, I'll definitely get it. I'm going to do that by the end of the day. 3 days later. And, so not performing on what we said, not performing on what I said. This was mostly me. And, the stuff that nobody cares about until you're in big trouble, accounting and, things like that start to slip because you're like, you got to get the job done. You got to get out there and you got to fix the thing. You got to build the thing. You got to do the work. You've got to lease the house. And those daily operations can really get to you. And then you start to not perform, not do what you said you were going to do because that new customer feels better, right? You've got to get that new customer, that new client, whatever it is.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. And again, very relatable. It's good to see or to know what signs to look for when you're trying to do as much as you can. You have great intentions, oh yeah, get you that estimate by the end of the week. And then another week goes by and another week goes by, or you're just putting things off on the back burner because you're unsure. You just don't want to call the person, whatever it is, like, see those as signs that something's broken, or maybe it is delegation. Maybe you need to bring somebody on, like you said, answering the phone, increase your business by 50%. Like, it's not rocket science, So
Yeah.
yeah, that's good. This has been super great so far, Tim. I'd like to just open things up, and if there's things you'd want to share or things you want to discuss, like, you got the floor, man. Have at it. We'll chat.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Zach, you had mentioned that. You gave us the rundown, gave me the rundown of the format of the show. And in that kind of open, like, what would you want to share with someone or with people? And I wrote down, I didn't write down much, but I wrote down, beware the grind. There are first of all, there's a lot of voices out there. Here's two of them right here, right? I hope you
Right.
listen to us. I hope you listen to Zach's podcast every week. I hope you listen to this episode twice, right?
Yeah, right.
And there's a lot of things going for your attention. And a lot of those things are going to tell you, shut up and work. Quit complaining and work harder. They've got t-shirts now. Shut up, work harder. I've seen that t-shirt. Some of my plumber friends wear that.
I believe it.
And some of it is, a little cultural dig on some things. But there is a huge, huge push to the grind. And, it can work for some people, but you're
Hustle
probably
culture.
not. Yeah, exactly. You're probably not one of them. If you listen to this and you think, no, that's me, I can hustle, I can go hard for a long time. You're probably not one of those people, because they are very few and far between. They're so rare that you're probably not one of them. If you are, awesome. Congratulations, hustle, go hard. I'm not saying don't work hard. But I came to a point when I realized I had gone 12 to 15 hours or more every day without a break for years on end. And I don't regret that, because, I'm in a pretty good spot in my business now. Even in the time for a little while, I was also very excited. I wanted to do it. I used to tell my friends, like, when they're like, oh man, you're working again, I'd go out, I might meet them for happy hour, have dinner or whatever, and then go home and work till 2, 3 in the morning again. And I felt I listened to a lot of people that said, you have to do it this way. Do you want to succeed? If so, do it this way, you will succeed. And there is some credibility there, because I did it and it worked. If I had to do it over again, I would look at it and go, what do I want my life to look like? Now, I'd love my life to look like 2 hours a day. What is it? Isn't there the book, The 4-Hour Work Week?
4-hour work week.
All right. I haven't read it. I actually, for a long time, was like, I'm not going to read that book. That's ridiculous. Who would want to be so lazy, right? But beware of the grind. First of all, I'll tell you right now, if you are married, if you have a partner, if you have a family, you've got to get your priorities straight. You got to do the right things in the right order. That's another one of our core values. Right things, right order. And it comes right after our first core value, which is family first, then life, then work. Because if you value your family, and some of you out there is like, oh man, my wife would kick my butt if I'm not at the dinner table. Great. Listen to that woman, that man, that partner, whoever you're with, that deserves your time. Make that first. And then when you're right here at the desk, I'm at my desk, I have a little workspace. When you're there, you're going to get 10 times more done, because it's like, I got to get to dinner. I got to get home. I got to get to those things that, excite me. And so that was what I wrote down was, beware the grind. It doesn't usually end well. I mean, I don't know. I'm a little older than you. I'm pushing 50. I'll be 50 this year.
Man, big 5 up.
I've now, I can now still count on one hand. Hopefully it stays that way. But, there was a time when it never even crossed my mind. But now I have people that I've met, that I've known, that I've interacted with that fell over dead at their desk. What was it? Was that worth it? It
Yeah.
doesn't end well. How many people do you hear, divorce and, things like that? Prioritize, man. Beware the grind.
Yeah.
No offense to the guys out there. Those guys that will someday be listening to the Trade Titans being like, who's this guy? He's
Right.
he's getting pretty popular, right?
Yeah.
They're out there preaching it, man. They are preaching it like, if you don't have enough money, get up earlier. You got to be up by 4 a.m.
Yeah.
I'm an early riser. It works for me. Now I watch the sunrise instead of get up and get on my computer or get up and go out and start working. Now I take some time for me.
Love to add to this and just, say like grind culture or hustle culture, all this kind of stuff. There absolutely is a time and a place for it. I've found it mostly in seasons of my life. It could be 3 weeks, it could be 3 months. But then I've also experienced right after that, like a time of rest where I have to tell myself, like, you know what? It's okay not to work till, 10 or 11. I used to work till 2 or 3 in the morning too, until I realized that I was no earthly good to anybody in the mornings. So I kind of had to balance that out a bit, but I wasn't up watching Netflix. I wasn't, playing video games or even spending enough time with my wife. I was working and I've always been an entrepreneur. I mean, I've started several businesses. I've created an estimating app. Like I started a YouTube channel. There was always something I was doing and I don't regret it, but I'm glad that I am not just like a hustle, get it done, because like you said, that's not the life that I want.
Yeah.
There's a time and a place for that, and it's good. Use it, use it as fuel to get you to where you want to go. But if you continue that way, you'll either fall over dead, you'll burn out, you'll destroy relationships, you will not take care of yourself, your well-being will go down, your health will go down. There's just so many things about it. So sure, if you're young and you got the gung-ho to like put in the time and the energy and like, good, do it. But just remember, like you said in the beginning of this, you got 4 hours to do a task, take 3 of it to sharpen the axe, chopping down the tree. And the metaphor is that, work smarter, not harder. Take time to reflect, like we spoke about earlier, to reflect, to plan. I bet if you guys took 15 minutes at night and 15 minutes in the morning, just that planning and reflecting on your day, it would save you a bunch of time and headache and stress. And so I agree with what you're saying. People pushing this grind and hustle culture, good, but just realize it's not sustainable. And it's just not sustainable. There's other ways to do it. So I'm glad that you brought that up, because I feel like somebody needs to kind of to jump in and not discourage it, but be like, just beware, it's not all it's hyped up to be for sure.
Yeah. And like you said, there's going to be times. There's a season. There are still times that it's actually pretty rare for me now to. I used to joke that I love vacation because when I'm on vacation, and this included international trips, whatever. When I was on vacation, I would only work 8 hours a day. I would be dedicated. Like I am only going to work 8 hours a day. But in order to do the things we were doing or spend the proper time, that would usually be from sometime 4 in the morning till 8 or 9 in the morning. And then again, several, 4 or 5 hours in the evening or late night.
Yeah.
And, so now it's actually pretty rare for me to work 8 hours in a day, focused at my desk, even unfocused. It's pretty rare. And it's certainly not because I'm lazy. It is, to learn to say, hey, I want my life to look like this, and you're not going to have that right away. So hustle if you're young, put in the extra hours if you can. But there's also nothing wrong with saying, I am going to work from 8 to 5. I'm going to be there for my family. I'm always going to tuck my kids in. I'm always going to be there for quality time with my wife, like whatever that is, or your husband or your partner. If we see this in our business a lot, well, in the world a lot, the divorce and all that kind of stuff. That's the other thing I would encourage, people with the open time is, that partner, if you have a partner, you got with them for a damn good reason. It is, they appreciate you caring for them. as men in the trade businesses, it's pretty man heavy. A huge motivator is providing. We're hardwired for it. I'm going to provide for my family. They appreciate it. Absolutely. But they appreciate you more.
Yeah.
They
Well,
they
I
really
want
do.
to add to what you're saying. This has come up recently and something that I've been mulling over in my head. A lot of times quality over quantity. Men, women, whichever category you fall in, like, you can get off at 5 and pat yourself on the back. Like, I'm only working 8 to 5 and I've made this my lifestyle now. But are you really there at 5, or from 5 to 6 when dinner's getting ready or you're eating? Are you still up here working things out in your mind? Maybe you need to talk to your significant other. Hey, I'm a little behind. Could I take some time to just at least get this thing done? Or I need an extra half hour to decompress so that I can be present with you guys and not thinking about work, whatever that is. Just don't get caught up in that. I'm off at 5 and I'm there for my family, and I'm there every weekend. When I know, as a business owner, and you probably know as well, Tim, up here, you're thinking about all the work stuff you got to do or what you're going to do the next time you get to your desk. So don't fall into that, and just beware, be present with the ones that you love and your family and friends.
That's
Don't
gold.
just be in the same room, but not mentally there.
Yeah, that's gold. That's gold. And I'll tell you what, if you take that time for yourself and with your family, because it's the same when you're at work, like, you are going to be more effective than, you really can. If you do it right, go back. If it's not feeling it, go back and figure it out. Read a book, get the coaching, figure out how to do it right. Because if you do the right things in the right order, you are going to be more effective in that 6 to 8 hours a day. Some days might be 10. It's going to happen. You're going to get that weekend where you're like, hey, I'm just going to spend the weekend. I'm going to spend this Saturday. So I'm not saying don't hustle. But yeah, and being present in the work, get your brain focused, do what you got to do so that you can be present for your family. That is gold, Zach. Yeah, for anybody listening, like, you've got to be present with your family. I mean, why the hell are you doing this? The guy with the biggest bake, that's the whole thing, the guy, whoever dies with the most toys, whoever dies with the biggest bank account, the biggest business, whatever it is, add cliche here. You're still dead, man.
Right.
This is our chance, right?
Yeah.
Those people you're with, they deserve you.
Yeah. What do you do it for, if not for your family and friends and the values that you have? Keep that perspective that work isn't my first priority. I'm not working because I just love to work and that's what I care about the most. It's a means to an end. It's to support and be there for your family. So make sure that they come first and be present, keep priorities straight. Like you said, you got 1, 2, and then work. I forget what your first 2 were.
So our first core value of our company, that was one of the first things I did when I said, hey, this is all broken. My partner, Katie, and she came in a little later, but we basically built our business together. And we were broken, in most ways, stress and at each other and just not enjoying life. So we said, oh, nope, this is done. But kind of told her, like, hey, we've got to change our focuses, and we really had a lot of conversation about it, because it was like, from her perspective, hey, we have to do this. Like, who's going to do this? Who's going to do that? How are we going to service these customers? Like, I don't know, but we've got to get our priorities straight. And one of the first things I did from reading a book and having coaching was doing, like, I don't have any core values. I don't even know what that meant. And that just resonated with me. Family first, then life, then work. And if those things are important to you, I've had people that, oh, well, family, life first. I really like fishing, I'd rather fish than go to work today. I mean, if you really like fishing, you need that newest rod, you need a good truck, you need a cabin on the lake, you need all those things, and you can really fish well on Saturday, or even make your schedule in a certain way that supports those things. So if you focus on those things, whatever it might be for you, find the why. Of course, all this stuff it's out there, the books and all that. Find the why. Family first, then life, then work is going to be so important to you, because you are going to be in there with a flame lit under your ass to get the freaking job done, to get it done well, to impress your customers, because those things, your why is so important that that you've got to get that job done in 8 hours. You've got to get it done without working until midnight, and it really is once I found that, things started falling into place. And I wish I could go back to day one and get those 3 or 4 years of my life back that my priorities were out of whack.
That's great, Tim. I actually have a resource, and this wasn't planned, but since we're touching on this, and it's been such a huge influence in my life, I will, wherever I can, where this podcast is, I will attach this and let you download this and go through it. But it's essentially a blueprint to, like we're talking about, building the life that you want by looking at your values. Essentially, it is, what are your top 3 values? What's keeping you from those values? What do you need to do to get closer to those values? And what happens if you don't do those things in 1 year, in 5 years, in 10 years? It really opens up your mind and be like, wow, yeah, now I can get my priorities straight. And what happens if I don't do these things? It can be scary thinking about it, but that seems to be what gets you motivated as well. This has been super insightful, Tim. Great conversation. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences and tell us about your story and your journey and everything today. But before we wrap this up, where can the listeners connect with you or learn more about Local Rental Team and Kopa Home Services?
Yeah, so because we have 3 divisions, we do have 3 websites. Our residential rental platform and business is localrentalteam.com. Our vacation rental platform is localvacationteam.com. And Kopa Home Services is our maintenance arm, and that is Kopa Home. That's Kopa. And those are the places that, those are our websites. One I had touched on earlier, that marketing is something that has never been my strong suit other than relationship building. And so we've had varying degrees of trying to get that to content creation. Each of our arms, Local Rental Team, Local Vacation Team, Kopa Home, and me personally as Flagstaff Tim, we have our Facebooks and our Instagrams and our YouTube channels, and they're not really widely used. I am at that point of business now that we're back on growth, coming out of that, perfecting and oiling our machine, so to speak, that I expect to see those platforms really start to grow. Which is, Zach, I was really excited to connect with you and really grateful and appreciate that you found us, because that is part of that. And as we know in this world, it's kind of, I'm not going to say it's required, but it's where we live now. And
times are
so
changing,
we do have all of those things on all the socials, not super active, but if anybody reached out or wanted to connect in any way, we would certainly respond in those ways as well.
Awesome. That's great. And for our listeners, if you found value in this episode, subscribe wherever you're listening to. If you're in the trades or service business as an owner, you're looking to scale, connect with us at UpScale Media. We'd love to assist you. And thanks again, Tim, for coming on. And we really appreciate having you. It's been an excellent conversation. Everybody, until next time, keep building, keep scaling, and keep thriving in the trades.
Thanks, Zach. Have a great day.